Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, guys. During the last couple parts, I might sound quite sick, and that's gonna be because during the recording of these videos, I actually got quite sick, or actually caught the flu. But alhamdulillah, I'm starting to get better now. But for this part, in continuation of the videos that we're making on David Wood and his friends, the supposed best argument against Islam requires 5 people against 1 Muslim. So much for this being the best argument against Islam. But nevertheless, during this part, we're going to be going through Quran chapter 10, verse 94, and we're going to be highlighting some major blunders these panelists have while trying to critique my position. If you want to support my work for the research, editing, and time taking place to make these videos, then be sure to donate down below to my GoFundMe, or alternatively, subscribe on my Patreon for access to my Discord server with many perks. Without further ado, let's begin this response.
I'm going to testify on 1094, and it's literally telling Muhammad that if he doubts, to go to those who read or read the scriptures before him, which, by the way, is the same passage that Muhammad Hijab offered when he was doing a response to Westhoff, but he had a completely different application.
Completely different, yeah.
Yeah, so
But
it's funny because, yeah, but it's really funny though, because he sees that and he's like, well, why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we do, like, who, you're not debating testify there, you're debating Allah.
Yeah, Allah said it, not us. We don't want you to come to us.
Allah's the one saying that. Allah's the one saying that. Well, why would we go do that? That's stupid.
These Christians say that this is what... No, Allah said.
Yeah, I mean, this is the world of the Islamic dilemma. So welcome, Dean.
Yeah, if it's so clearly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, then why is the dominant view that it's not talking about Christians and Jews?
Talking about a Jewish convert, it's saying, yeah, go to him. Now, the problem there would be, this still sounds like it assumes that at least he has access to a reliable copy of the Torah. So is it only the converts? Is it only the converts who have access to the Torah? Where are they getting access to the Torah? Where are the converts? Where are the converts getting access to the Torah?
Yeah, we're not saying it's a different Torah. We're just saying that Abdullah bin Salam and his companions, they would be able to explain, not hide the scriptures that mention the Prophet ﷺ, where these converts from Christianity or Judaism can give an understanding and how they interpreted this being the Prophet ﷺ, because people like Salman al-Farisi who converted to Islam, or Abdullah bin Salam, it was due to them seeing the Prophet ﷺ in the scriptures. So if you want to know the proofs for Islam, you go to them who accepted Islam on the basis of these proofs. Quite clear. And you don't need a fully preserved book in order for us to use it to prove Islam. If you use the argument of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ being in the Bible, you don't have to not believe in tahrif to do that.
Who believe in you, Muhammad? If you're in doubt, go to the people who believe that you're a prophet and ask them. Yes,
Just like Joseph Smith. It's like Joseph Smith being like,
just ask Brigham Young, guys, if I'm really a prophet.
yes, Muhammad, go ask the people who've converted to Islam and who are under a death sentence if they say you're not a prophet. You'll instantly chop their heads off. Go ask them whether you're actually a true prophet.
Their problem to say to go ask Muslims about the evidence for Islam that they have knowledge on. I don't see how this is circular at all. This is quite analogous to those that say men can't give opinions on women because they're men. Facts are the facts. So if a Muslim is able to show that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is in the Bible and they have good points, it doesn't matter that it comes with the Muslim. From the same way, if a Christian's doubting Jesus being foretold in the Old Testament, he's not going to go to a Jew. He'll go to a Christian that has knowledge to exegete the Old Testament.
To Ibn Kathir, who he appealed to first. Let's see what Ibn Kathir does. Ibn Kathir say that this is just referring to the Jews and Christians who believe in Muhammad, or is he saying that it's referring to Jews and Christians in general, and then he puts condemnation on them? Why? Because it says that they're just as certain about this as they are about their own children, but they hide it and they distort it, they change it, they don't believe in it, despite the clear evidence against it. And then he goes on to quote, chapter 7, verse 157, that they find him written in the Torah and in the Gospel. So he's talking about the unbelieving Jews and Christians here.
Not just the good Abdullah bin Salam ones.
Exactly. So this is his interpretation. So Ibn Kathir, who he appealed to initially for his wrong application of Ibn Kathir's, or misunderstanding or his lie what Ibn Kathir said.
So Ibn Kathir doesn't say go and ask the disbelieving Jews and Christians. You're just asserting that into the text. He's merely highlighting that the books attest to the Prophet ﷺ being mentioned in there. He's not explicit on who to ask there, actually. And as I mentioned before, At-Tabari and Muqatil, amongst many others, they present the dominant view as it's the believing Christians and Jews.
That it is talking about the people of the book who met Muhammad and believed in him. So you couldn't include Abdullah bin Salam in there. But there's also Ibn Jurayj, and I don't know why he calls it Ibn Jurayj. The bigger name that he should have said Ibn Abbas, because he narrates it from, yeah, but then there's another one with Ibn Jurayj who narrates it from Mujahid. And he just says, so Mujahid said that these are just people of the book. So there you go. So he's trying to say because Ibn Jurayj is there, that it somehow makes it this early and this the classical interpretation or whatever. Well, guess what? He also narrated one that just says it's a general people of the book, not specifying that it's the ones who believed in Muhammad and met Muhammad.
So you guys see these numbers? These are not the numbers of the opinions that Tabari says. He puts one opinion, which says the ones who believed in Muhammad, and then it's literally 2 points down on the same page from still the same man Ibn Jurayj, just saying there are the people of the book generally. So do you guys see who's concealing and who's not giving the whole thing?
Exactly.
Actually, you guys are the one that's concealing. Because if you go to Tafsir At-Tabari says the dominant view and the correct view would be that it's the Muslims who converted, like Abdullah bin Salam and so on. All of the views Tabari mentions includes this very notion that it's those who believed, or it's Abdullah bin Salam and his companions. The one view that doesn't make this explicit from Mujahid, actually, the funny thing is, if you go to Tafsir al-Baghawi, We know what Mujahid believed regarding this verse because Baghawi makes it more explicit from Mujahid that he meant those who believed. So even on that, you're just totally wrong. And Mujahid says it's the people of the book. That's open to either those who believed or those who disbelieved. You just assumed you're reading and put it into the text of Mujahid. And I use collectively what other Mufassir scholars said regarding his statement. And they attribute the statement more clearly to Mujahid that he meant the believing people. Nice try with that one. But as the common theme of all these responses are going to be, you're going to see really how incompetent and just low IQ these individuals are.
But this, so they're picking commentary. So Ibn Kathir isn't going to work for this one, so we'll go to this other one. But even then, even if they go to like Tabari, they have to pick and choose which commentary, which statement from someone like Ibn Jurayj they have to go to get the result they want. And it's just picking and choosing, picking and choosing, picking and choosing, picking.
I'm not the one who's picking and choosing from a Tabari. Tabari says explicitly himself that my view is his view. That's the funny thing. They're the one who's picking and choosing from a Tabari. They skipped over all of the views that say it's the believing people and chose an ambiguous view given to Mujahid, which was open to both sides. And they asserted an interpretation on Mujahid that he doesn't hold to himself, as mentioned by Baghawi. It's a nice try, David. Really, you should get better guests on. If these guys are your best, then that's really laughable, honestly. If it's taking 5 whole people for them to make a presentation ready, it takes you about 5 hours to deal with one person. Bear in mind, most of them are like double my age, and they're still struggling so hard to defend their arguments. They're making mistakes left, right, and center. They're hiding stuff, misrepresenting tafsirs, not reading them properly, and distorting my views in order for them to run this argument. It really shows you how weak this argument truly is.
It's the book that they're reading. Like that's the important part. The book, right? Not if these Jews, if he believes in Muhammad.
It doesn't matter. A book can be distorted, and you can still gather from it enough truths in order for you to use it as an evidence for a religion. For example, Justin Martyr believes that the Jews distorted the book of Psalms and the book of Esdras, etc. And yet you can still use the overall text of the Psalms and the book of Esdras to prove Christianity. Same way today, as I said before, Muslims use Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in the Bible as an argument for Islam, despite us believing in Tahrif.
The camels are going to be sacrificed or eaten.
Yes, this evidently testifies ignorance on Islam.
In your face, testify. I have to.
And at me as a kuffar here.
Now here's a situation where claiming abrogation would be relevant. You could say that the Quran is affirming earlier scriptures. That's something, camel meat or something like that could be something that's abrogated. So this is for those who are asking about abrogation earlier. This is a situation where you can actually appeal to abrogation. It doesn't work when appealing to the books and stuff, but it does work with a specific command in one of the books.
So David already basically conceded the point here that Testify made a mistake, and a Muslim can actually appeal to abrogation here with no problem. And as you can see, this is one of the main reasons why Testify needs to run to his daddy, David Wood, in order to help him with these videos. He evidently can't defend his arguments himself.
A different ruling on camel meat. Now, this is no longer applicable in the Prophet's time, and this is just nasakh, it's abrogation. There's no problem with that. Allah can rule out one period.
He did go with abrogation. Okay.
That camel meat is permissible, and later say it is permissible. There's no problem with that.
Wait,
Testify has been humiliated.
But think
Me as a kuffar here.
Yep, Testify was humiliated, David. Despite David being someone who's an Islamophobe and has all of these negative traits, I'll give it to him on this part. He's genuine enough to concede on this point. But Jay and Doc, they, as like a common theme throughout these parts, you're going to see that they don't even concede on the most basic and easiest, most apparent understandings of the Quran. They'll continuously twist the Quran and never concede.
there's no problem with the Quran saying over and over and over and over like a beating drum, saying that the book, the Quran confirms what came before it, what's in the possession of the Jews and the Christians, what's in their hands, literally what's in their hands, what's with them, right? So it's confirming it over and over and over and over again, it's confirming it. And then he's like, oh, well, on this point, though, you could say that the Quran knows that there's a contradiction here, and I'm just going to call it abrogation, and that's going to clear it. So it's not confirming it then. It's contradicting it, or he would say it's correcting it. But that's not what the Quran says. The Quran doesn't say that. The Quran says that it's confirming it, not abrogating it, and it's also saying it's confirming it, not correcting it. So Testify's point stands that the Jewish rulings on, for example, not eating camel meat or rabbit, which Muhammad ate both of, by the way, in the Hadith, that contradicts the Torah, and maybe you could argue that Muhammad wasn't supposed to follow the Torah, but Muhammad did say that there's a hadith in one of the commentaries that says that Muhammad does actually judge or he rules by the Torah. So if that's true, he just didn't know what the Torah said, because the Torah goes against the things.
He doesn't know what the Torah said, even though the Quran says that hooved animals were prohibited for the people of Israel. Are you serious? And of course you can confirm a scripture despite your abrogating it. Did Jesus not confirm the law of Moses? Did not confirm the Old Testament, despite the Old Testament having laws that are no longer applicable afterwards? Do you guys still uphold to the laws of the Old Testament? Of course you don't. That's abrogated, despite Jesus confirming the Old Testament You can confirm something while at the same time abrogating it. A perfect example of this is when Jesus confirms the Torah, confirms the law, and yet he says that was commanded for you before that divorce was okay, but now divorce is no longer okay. So you can still say the Quran is confirming something while abrogating it, even under your own paradigm.
By the way, what he said about abrogation is not true of camel meat, because if you go to Surah 3, verse 93, it's talking about bring the Torah and recite it if you're truthful. There is a phrase that says that in that verse. And the background, according to Qurtubi, is that the Jews apparently said to Muhammad, we forbid the meat of camels because Allah revealed this prohibition in the Torah. So Allah refuted them and said, bring the Torah and recite it if you're truthful. It's actually saying that he never prohibited it in the Torah. You find that in Qurtubi, Surah 3, verse 93. So it's not true, because Allah actually claims, according to the tafsir, that he never even initially prohibited camel meat ever.
Yeah, we don't even have to go to another tafsir for this. The fact of the matter is she's misreading Al-Qurtubi, because Qurtubi says in his tafsir on Surah An'am, actual verse that I cited in my video, Qurtubi says that this is in the Torah, whereby camel meat is prohibited. So Qurtubi does indeed believe that camel meat was prohibited in the Torah. So this is your utter incompetency being highlighted once again.